So this is just a quick review of the knives that I have used. Probably just in the past 10 or 12 years or so I picked most of these up. This was my first truly bushcraft knife. It's a mimic of the Ramirez Woodlore. It's got a maple handle, very comfortable. It doesn't have a true Scandi grind. It has kind of a short convex grind to mimic the Scandi. Came to me quite sharp. It's a good user. Spear point, good for drilling, good for carving. What I didn't like about this knife was that the spine didn't come to me very sharp, and I had trouble striking a fire steel with it, and that was a big turn off. I tried sanding the spine a little bit. I filed it down a bit, and I just couldn't get it to perform the way I liked it, so it kind of fell out of my favor and went to my loaner pile. I build sheaths, and this was a sheath that went with that knife. It's probably about 9 years old now. Horizontal carry. And I loaned this knife out to friends with just to try out the sheaths, basically, and anybody that doesn't have a good knife that may come out on a trip with me. This was my second, the same maker, guy in England, and same type of grind. It's got more of a shallow convex rather than a Scandi grind. They're not very easily sharpened or on a flat stone, but sandpaper, leather strop works good. Very sharp. This has got a very sharp spine, and you can work a fire steel with this knife very easily. This was my user for probably about a year and a half or so, and the handle was a little beefy. I think this is walnut, and it tended to be a bit uncomfortable when carving with it for any length of time. So it's now in my loaner pile. This was another one from the same maker in England. It's got that same grind to it, kind of a shallow convex grind. Very sharp spine. A little bit thinner knife. It comes in at about 3 millimeters. It's got a micarta handle, a little bit narrower, a little more comfortable. This is also a loaner now. This is the one that goes out most often. Most people choose this to take this with them. I have a sheath. The sheath I have that goes with this knife is this sheath. This is probably 8 or 9 years old now. It's got the survival pack, sharpening stone inside, and whatever else the user wants to take with them. It's got a fire steel loop sized army. The logo on the back, logo on the front. This knife is one of my favorites. It's the Air Force survival knife from, I guess, dating back to about the Vietnam era. This is, I think, a very underrated knife, and I'm surprised I don't see it more in more people's kits. It's a great user. It's not great for carving. It's probably not great in any one area, but for the money, for $30, I find that this is a real handy camp tool. It's got a great heavy pommel. I've used this to crack open nuts, pound in tent stakes, any kind of hammering job. The guard is quite long, so it easily keeps your hand from sliding up over the blade when pounding. I modified it slightly. I ground down this top part of the guard, probably about I don't know, maybe an 1/8 inch or so, just to allow me to reach over and choke up on it a little bit while carving. I've used this to baton. I've used it to make tent stakes, to for shelter building. This has gotten a lot of use, and this goes with me almost all the time. I generally take 2 knives, but this is the one you will probably around camp see me use more often, and almost always on my pack strap or on my belt. This knife you might recognize. It's one of Andy Roy's knives. It's his Bushcrafter. It's got a true Scandi grind, extremely sharp. This is probably my favorite, all-time favorite Bushcraft knife. The handle is extremely comfortable. I think this is micarta, but I'm not sure. It certainly looks like it. Very, very comfortable. It's a great size. I think this is, in my opinion, a perfect length knife for me. And this I'll use around camp mostly for carving. It's got a nice drop point, a spear point for drilling. It's got a very sharp spine. Can work a fire steel quite easily. And I really can't say enough about this knife. The thing is that I use it, but I tend not to abuse it, so it'll be rare for you to see me processing wood with this knife. I'll split batons, small pieces of kindling and things, but I won't do any heavy work with this. Mostly just as a carver and a user. So these two are my favorites. They always go with me. These 3 are loners, and they go with people who want to try out my sheaths, mainly. The novice who doesn't get out much and maybe not own a decent knife. I think these are all great knives, but these 2 are the ones that are always with me. The sheath for this knife is this one here. I got a fire steel holder on it. This knife fits securely in there. It's not coming out. I can wear it inverted on my pack strap. That's kind of where you'll see it most of the time. And or on my belt. It can be worn front or back. And this is quite a heavy knife, but and I'm a big guy, but I'm not heavy, and it fits quite nicely on my back and in front. Anyway, those are my knives, and I'd be interested in hearing any comments you have, what you think of my choices. Thanks a lot.